Hey, my sugar bears, welcome back to my channel, Bougie AF. It's your host, Jay Nicole. It's where I say stay bougie on them. It's me feeding you feminism for the soul. It's my soul food offering. It's where I apply pressure to issues by being critical and logical. Now, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Now, let's get to the commentary where I can guarantee you I will be doing too much because that's just me. And like Sheree said, who's gonna check me, boo?
Hey y'all, it's your girl Jay Nicole, where I say stay bougie on them, and I'm serving you feminism for the soul. Don't forget to check me out on them people's Instagram at OG_bougie AF. You can also check me out on Twitter at I'm_bougie_AF. You can also check me out on them people's TikTok at SheBougieAF. So listen, y'all. So this is going to be an interesting one for me. This is probably going to be like a little bit of a story time, a bougie story time. And so, of course, I was down there slumming it on the People's Clubhouse, and today or this week I decided to get on a couple stages, and I promise y'all, every time I get on stages, sometimes I really end up regretting it. But I don't know if I feel like I regret it, but I also feel like it taught me something in terms about society, and like in terms of just like group thinking, herd mentality, just seeing, full grown adults behave in a way that is just really weird. And at the same time made me kind of sad because it's like there is just some people who is just set up to just not believe as much as like there will be evidence that support what they're being told. They're just really set up to just like really kind of, I guess, be uninformed and or just be ignorance is bliss, right? I truly feel like I've come to that conclusion this week on Clubhouse that I've literally learned that ignorance is bliss. I've literally learned that people are okay with being ignorant. And for somebody like me, who is somebody who just rationally thinks about stuff and logically thinks about stuff, that I even went to the extent on Clubhouse now that I've changed my name to the sexy autistic nerd, right? And and I know what you're saying. Like, why would you do something like that? Because I felt like, I started to think after this week on Clubhouse from a few rooms. And earlier today, I was in a room, and this person was, I guess he was just like dissing somebody, like capping on them. And one of the things he told the person was that they were autistic. And they was like, I know you have a hard time understanding or something, explanations and stuff because you're autistic or something like that. And I just remember saying to myself, oh, that's all you need to do. I just remember saying to myself today, oh, that's all you need to diagnose somebody, is that if someone is having a hard time understanding what's being explained to them, they're automatically autistic. And I said, well, let me take that shit and run with it, because if I'm on Clubhouse and y'all think, or if anybody is thinking that I could possibly be autistic, and I'm even like starting to even think about like in real life and people who may not like me or say or think something's wrong or whatever. And I literally had to say, oh, it's because they. Okay, so on Clubhouse, in the room that I was in, this week that really blows my mind to this day. I went on stage because I had some questions about like what was being said on stage, right? Because what was being said was just like inaccurate, right? And so instead of like telling like a full, stage of people that they're wrong, I'm asking questions like, hey, I'm trying to understand. So what exactly is your issues with essentially George Soros? Like, what is your issues with him, right? Can you help me understand that us as a black community, there seems to be a consensus amongst you guys that he's this type of person. Now, just remind you, there was an asshole from, my city that I'm from, and he was on stage, and I felt like he had planted this seed and kind of watered it. And you'll meet these individuals who come in rooms and say things and don't provide you references or, so that you can look up what they're saying. And for a lot of people on Clubhouse, I guess they have so much clout that people just take like what they say as a fact. I'm not one of those people, baby. With that being said, especially when I know better, especially when I'm sitting there and there's a computer in my hand and I could quickly look up stuff, right? Whew, man, that got dragged too, right? Like that, the fact that I use Google, right? So I'm sitting in the audience, and this I'm getting back to why I could possibly be autistic to these folks, right? So I'm sitting in the audience, and they are talking about George Soros, and the way this conversation came up about George Soros was that a gentleman, like I said, from the city of Boston, was talking about what did he call these people? Crisis people who are hired to create crises in like situations, right? And so the best example I can give you, let's take for example Black Lives Matter, right? Let's take all the riots and all the protests, right? He was insinuating that some of these crisis instigators would be hired, right? In the same context of that conversation, the name George Soros, right, got brought up as the person who probably hired these people to instigate these individuals to behave the way that they did during the Black Lives Matter protest. Now, just to remind you, when I looked at the news and I seen the people who were out there protesting in terms of for Black Lives Matter, I seen a lot of teenagers. A lot of teenagers was out there, right? They were usually a lot of times were the ones looting the store, especially in California. They were the ones really in the streets, like really. So even some young 20s, right? And so while I'm sitting here listening to this entire room kind of trying to blame crisis instigators, I guess, who were hired essentially by George Soros to do that, right? Because for them in this conversation, George Soros is the mastermind and trying to it was a lot of language of he's trying to destroy America, right? The economic system of America. There was so that was one of the things that they laid out in terms of George Soros that he's trying to do. He's the instigator. He's the reason why, the people were doing what they were doing in Black Lives Matter. Now, just to remind you, similarly, what we've seen through the protests of Black Lives Matter, we just seen it in France when a 17-year-old boy, Nahel, I don't know his last name, was shot and killed by the police. They went to the street, they tore shit up, they burned shit down. Similar behavior, because anytime there is potential of a revolution or when you're asking the government to acknowledge that they are treating people wrong, it's going to be taken to the streets. It's rarely done peacefully, right? So with that being said, that behavior, Black Lives Matter and all that, that's not unique, right? It's just really not. We've seen the riots in 93 in LA. Like, it's just not unique behavior, right? But for some reason, we want to find someone to blame for this behavior. And George Soros, I guess, because he donated money to Black Lives Matter, is that person that we have someone that we're going to attribute that to, right? Really weird. I thought everybody was in agreement that what happened behind George Floyd was wrong and taken to the street was really, really what we want to do on our own, right? But okay, I guess there's a mass email chain from George Soros to all of y'all kids and shit that went out there and fucked shit up, right? George sent them out there, right? Anyway, so back to what their issues were. So the issues was that he was, hired the people to cause the chaos between during Black Lives Matter. The other issue with him was that supposedly someone even said that he caused the collapse of 6 countries to collapse, right? Okay, that's interesting. Then there's the third one of, I guess he lied about something during World War II in terms of saying that he owned businesses or were related to people who owned property or something he did in terms of lying, right? Now, I just laid out the 3 things that were told to me on why we as a community hate George Soros. So I quickly looked him up. I realized that, and at this time, I don't even know the man is Jewish, right? I never looked him up before, heard his name be mentioned in like Republican and conservative spaces, right? And always associated with somebody who has dealings with Black Lives Matter. That was the context of like how I recognized his name, right? Don't know nothing about him being Jewish. Extremely important that you do remember that, right? Because we're getting there. This is, like I said, this is story time, right? And so I go up on stage, and this is after having to be on stage and correct some misinformation around mRNA that my munch, y'all may know her on the club. I think she goes by the name Dawn Diva or something like that, was sitting on Clubhouse stage telling people that the government was putting the mRNA in the food, right? Watch out, be careful, it's in your food. I go up and I'm like, girl, that's not it. That's not, that's not happening. And that's really, really weird. And I provide the sources, right? Because I know y'all out here lying in these clubhouse streets, right? I provide two great sources, from publications that are respected. I'm not giving you somebody's, personal blog. I didn't give anybody's personal opinion. I gave them Thermo Fisher's write-up of what mRNA was and all that other stuff, and then gave them another article that debunked that whole conspiracy, because we niggas, we're gonna keep it 100. We niggas, and y'all know niggas love them a good conspiracy theory. So there's this conspiracy theory, I guess, in the community around mRNA. So I go into the room. She's up there and she is just going off. She sounded like she eating, y'all. Like she know what the fuck. She talking munching away, right? Letting y'all be known. So I go up and I'm like, girl, that's not it. That's not what it is. Like, and I said, I provided sources to let you know what mRNA is. They outline, the process and all this other stuff. Because they're listening to her, they're putting it in the plants, they're putting it in the vegetables, they're putting it in the animals, right? They're putting it basically in the food supply. Long story short, she did not like the fact that I challenged her. First thing that came out her mouth was that I came up to be a contrarian, right? And this is really disappointing because I'm talking about the things I learned behind interacting with folks on Clubhouse, right? And necessarily kind of, I feel like it's reinforced to me things like I've known about just behavior in general amongst a certain group of people, right? So the first thing she says to me, oh, you just came up here to be a contrarian, right? So I guess it's wrong to correct misinformation, right? I guess it's wrong because for me, it's harmful. Like, I know my community lives and thrives in a good conspiracy theory, and it will last a very long time. I promise you, some of these conspiracy theories has been around forever, with no correction and nobody having proof that they are real. Or yes, they never running into people who are just like, no, that doesn't even make sense. And let me tell you why, right? So for me, this mRNA conspiracy theory is harmful. It's going to lead to actually probably future vaccines if needed. We don't know what's going to happen in the world with a community still having resistance with listening to the government and future vaccines that could potentially be made or needed, right? So that's what made me go up there, right? I hear tons of misinformation on Clubhouse on a daily, and rarely am I corrected outside of what I'll put in the chat. Outside of that, I'm not correcting shit. I rarely do I go up to engage, because it's just clear to me that just there's some people who don't have the temperament or have never been in environments where you have discussion and you have conversations about different things without it leading to things like doxing or people just feeling some sort of way and munching on you all night long, right? So she calls me a contrarian, and I was like, that's not a contrarian. That's really, really weird, right? A contrarian won't necessarily like somebody who's just like, for the sake of going back and forth, they will just argue a point. And from what I looked it up before, and it had something to do more or less with financial stuff. So it's just really weird. I think it said the economy, someone who's dealing with the stock market was the example that they said in terms of a contrarian, right? Cool. She's aggravated that I've corrected her. I used Google to correct her because I didn't know that there was something else people were out there, pulling up information on, right? I then got labeled by several people. Oh, I think at this point, B. James came off his mic. He was like, people got access to Google and they think they really know what they're talking about, which is really weird that this gentleman is talking to me like this because I don't know you, sir. And you don't know what I know, right? Because you wouldn't have known that I worked at a company. I knew what mRNA was before the vaccine, before COVID-19, right? So again, an assumption is made about me and my intelligence and what I actually know, right? I said to him, okay, whatever. I ignored that. But all night long, there's references being or downplaying the fact that I use Google. So at this point, I'm really annoyed because, if you're not a scholar, if you're not actually enrolled in colleges right now, you don't have access to archive, library databases and stuff like that. So I'm really at this point, I'm confused. So what y'all niggas using, right? Put me on, right? I don't keep it a secret. Put me on. So, long story short, this chick is so basic and just so, she's like, I I use Safari. And at this point, I can't take it no more because you're dumb as fuck now. Like, you're dumb as fuck. Y'all are sitting here while playing in my face. Think y'all playing in my face all over my social media apps, trying to troll me with specific things y'all saying out loud, blah, 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 blah. Doing the most, right? Thinking I'm not catching on. Thinking I'm not aware of this shit, right? So she telling me she used Safari, and at this point we have been like going back and forth for like hours. I was like, you dumb motherfucker, like, you dummy, right? You're sitting here giving me a hard time and you just use another, search engine. Like, is that where we're at right now? Right? I'm Google Queen. I then got accused of parroting information. Now, this blows my mind too, because again, this is another way to discredit somebody in their opinion about something, right? Trying to make it seem as if those parroting is wrong in the context and the way that they're using it, right? Because we all are reading, I hope, right? I hope we're just not like my munch and just making up shit and pulling it out your ass. We're all reading, right? And we're all repeating the things that we read, right? With our interpretation or just, our phrasing. I'm not going to say our interpretation, our phrasing, right? Parroting is literally just repeating stuff and not knowing why or what you're repeating, not having like a full understanding of like what you're talking about. Essentially what she was doing, right? Which was parroting that the fact that mRNA is in our food, wherever the fuck she got that from, right? Because I still didn't get a source on where that came from, right? She provided me no information on that, right? We're going to get back to George Soros. I said this is story time. It is what it is. Follow the fucking story, right? So, okay, so I got insulted all like that. What else did I get insulted by? I got told that I wasn't black because I am caping for George Soros, right? So after Munch finally, took a break because she got back to munching on me all throughout the night, y'all. So after Munch took a break, I went down to the audience, came back up for the George Soros part that I just telling you guys about, right? Back to George Soros. Yes. Keep up. Because I am not lost. I'm very clear about what I'm saying. So let's get back to those three things that they said that George Soros did. Remember I said Black Lives Matter. Remember I said they said he collapsed 6 economies. Still have no sources. Nothing has been provided in the chat for any of this. And the third thing was something that he lied about having to do with like Holocaust. Having to do with the Holocaust, right? I'm still confused because again, the Black Lives Matter thing, that's just an opinion, right? There's no facts. There's nothing that's been provided. So I'm asking them, and the other two things in terms of the economy and the Jewish people, the Holocaust, those essentially aren't anything that have to do with us as black people to dislike somebody, to dislike George Soros, right? Again, I'm trying to get to the deeper level of like why we hate this person. Why is this strong dislike? Why are we discrediting? Why are we having a problem and an issue with this gentleman, right? And I find, again, that a lot of times people are so strong to have these opinions, and the moment that they get pushed back, the moment that you just say, okay, so what's this about? Walk me through that. It becomes about everything else but what the fuck we talking about, right? Like to the point where I then, once I start to ask these questions, the first thing that B. James says to me is like, oh, you may have a bias because of, Black Lives Matter. You may, you supported that. And so that's why you're asking these questions about George Soros. And that's why, you're defending him. I said, first of all, again, here we go with another assumption, right? We've made an assumption from the very first time I've gotten on the stage. I said, you've made an assumption that I support Black Lives Matter. You've made an assumption that that because of my support for Black Lives Matter, I can't be objective and ask you about George Soros, right? So this is all a part of the distraction, right? Not to answer, not to provide any real information behind his thoughts and opinions about George Soros or just the group in general, right? They then start to just repeat what they said previously while I was on while I was in the goo. Now, by this time, the same article that you guys see on my screen from the New York Times, written by a black man, I have already posted that in the chat. I then start to say, I said, well, I guess I'm just confused, and this is going to tie into why I changed my name to the sexy autistic nerd. I then say, well, I'm confused. I said, I see, and I have here an article in 2020. Now, this is actually before the riots have happened, right, and before the protests for Black Lives Matter. I see that there's $220 million that this man has donated to different, not just one in terms of Black Lives Matter social groups, black social black led racial justice groups, right? Like, he's donated all of this money, right? It's important to know he's donated all of this money to black organizations, right, that are ran by black people, because we always say we know what we need best in terms of like what to do for our community, right? Like, if you listen to my YouTube videos, you know how big, we are on the community, right? So I said, well, I'm just trying to understand. I said, because he has all of these initiatives and all these things he's, donated money to. So what's the true, like, what's our beef about? I said, those two of those things don't have anything to do with black people in terms of the Holocaust, right? As much as you may not like his character, maybe he was a young boy and he lied and hustled his way to the top. I don't know, but we got tons of that shit in our community. So you got to respect the hustler. So I'm not quite sure why you hate him there. And then you have the other things in terms of, somebody made the statement that he helped collapse 6 countries' economies. I looked that up real quick. Seen in 92, he made a bet against the pound. It wasn't a good bet. People felt like it was market manipulation, so they felt some sort of way. We're talking about something that happened over 21 years ago. And again, UK ain't got shit to do with the black folks here, right? So again, there's we getting down to the fact that there's really no reason for this hate. There's really no reason for this dislike. These are just talking points or things that they've heard from other people. So I'm asking all of these questions, right? And let me go ahead and tell you why I decided to call myself the sexy autistic nerd, because I started to realize, and just like in real fucking life and issues that are the times that I fell out or I felt or people misunderstood me and probably led to them thinking that something was wrong. When you decide to engage with people who just may not know, or people who get together in groups and a whole group agrees, a whole group thinks a certain type of way, and you're just that one person who thinks differently. I don't care what is being spoke about, or I don't care how right you may be. If you're that one different to that group of people, you look like something is wrong with you. Right? Because what was implied after the entire conversation by some older woman who came off her mic to try to tell me about myself and then quickly left the room, because she's right, it probably would have gotten disrespectful unapologetically, right? Straight like that, right? Because how dare you tell me I need to just fall in line and think like everybody else? I provided you proof and all this other stuff into why I don't agree with what you're saying, right? Provided you the information. All right, so I'm asking questions and talking about being the sexy autistic nerd. And then I started to realize today when I heard that I probably do look like to these group of people that something is wrong with me. Right? Because I'm asking all the clarifying questions. I look like the person that is having a hard time understanding. I look like the person that's socially having a bad social interaction because I've decided that to go against the grain and be that one different person. And essentially, in terms of some of these, psychological terms, or some of these things in terms of trying to tell people they are neurodiverse, or trying to tell people that they have autism and all these other different things that have been weaponized in terms of just everyday life with communicating and interacting with people, is that different is what makes people want to just put all of these weird ass labels on you. And I now understand why some people say, in terms of some of the children within our communities why they're so heavily diagnosed. Because if you are that child that may be a little gifted in any type of way, or maybe even just not even fucking gifted, different, because I don't think I'm gifted. I know where I come from in terms of the level of education. I know where I come from in terms of just the level of people that I've been around in terms of being educated growing up, and know that I am just as smart as everybody that I went to school with, right? And they're on the same level as me, and even better. Like, I mean, they're better. So, I went to school with people who's going to Harvard. I went to school with people who's going to Princeton, Stanford, Yale. Like, all of these schools, like, all of these, like, top universities, I've gone to school with people who went to there, right? With that being said, I know the level of education in terms of like probably, and I did not do my best in high school. Oh God, no, I've never even fronted like I did, but I was most definitely taught doing the work. I was most definitely taught on how to go about researching all this other stuff. I most definitely wrote papers and all that other stuff. Could have done way better. But with that being said, I still feel like I did better than most of y'all. And I'm dead ass serious when I say that, because the level of conversation is just really, really off, right? And plus, I know where some of y'all come from. And so, B. James, please don't ever try me again coming out of them people's motherfucking Baltimore. I promise you, please don't ever do that again. With that being said, let me think about where I'm talking about. So I'm asking all these questions. I know I'm coming across, now I know I come across as somebody who probably looks like they have something wrong. Like I said, real life, I think that way too. I think I told you guys about a story in my videos about that time at that radio station and in the contracts, and I had all these questions and I had all these pushbacks. The great questions. I was thinking in a way I should be thinking. I was listening to the Joe Budden, and he was talking about how creators are getting screwed for not knowing the contract and the language and asking questions and just signing shit. So I'm like, like, go over this with me. Why motherfuckers are just signing? Like, when I seen people just sign like that, I was like, ooh, that's scary, right? But I'm different though. Not bad different. I'm different. I got some questions we need to go over. We here longer than y'all said we were going to be here for the meeting, but y'all want me to sign some paperwork. So I'm just trying to give you an example of what different looks like when people are out here labeling people different things, right? Okay. So so asking them about George Soros, and the reason why I told y'all I'm extremely consistent about, like, in terms of like side that I want for me questioning was this George Soros things, because two things was existing here for me that perplexed me. I am someone who pays attention to politics. I knew for a fact that when I heard George Soros' name mentioned negatively, I heard it in Republican and conservative spaces. I knew to now be in a black liberal space where everybody I know probably in this space probably voted Democrat, and very liberal, right? And they also hate George Soros. I know something is wrong. I honestly, maybe it's my own personal gauge. I know for me, these are red flags somewhere, right? Because what this is telling me that there's either, it could be true, both groups of, Democrats, I'm sorry, both groups of people could hate one person, right? But I just know that's not the case. Especially when we talk about politics. No. I know that I am dealing and talking with people in this black room that don't know what they're talking about. I literally know this, right? I literally know if I'm on the other side and they dislike him, miseducation is somewhere. After reading this article, I realize, and I'm going to pull up some talking points that I pulled up in terms of, like, I had just quickly researched in Chat GPT. I had wrote, and I did not need this, right? I did this days after this room. But I wanted it to be bullet point laid out. I wanted to know, why doesn't the right/conservatives don't like George Soros? And I didn't need this, but it reinforced what I already came to figure out from dealing with you motherfuckers on this app, in this room and having this experience. was that if the Republicans did not like him and the conservatives did not like him, and we know that they are usually, and I'm going to say all, a lot of them have an ideology that supports white supremacy, that supports white supremacy and keeping, this country as much a status quo as possible and keeping power for themselves. We can agree on that, right? That's essentially where they're coming from for things, right? So for me to read an article, and I'm really kind of breaking this down for you guys so you can kind of understand it too. So reading this article and seeing that he put his money into his ideology, into the things that he believed in, $220 million, shows me he supports something that totally goes against what Republicans and conservatives believe in, right? And that's extremely important that you know that, because you're sitting in a clubhouse room and you're downing somebody. That lets me know you don't even understand understand your position. You're actually playing into the narratives that they want you to play into, right? But y'all so black and proud, y'all so up on y'all shit, y'all so know what the fuck this is, right? That you can't even understand that y'all are actually, your ignorance is being played on with these talking points. And the person who tried to lead y'all into speaking about him in this type of way, I wouldn't be surprised, because I know my state, I wouldn't be surprised if that Cape Verdean is conservative in nature, right? Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised, to be honest with you, right? Ex-state police or something, they're very conservatives in my state. Right? I wouldn't be surprised. I'm just being completely honest. I just wouldn't be surprised, right? So with that being said, I know that we don't know what we're talking about. I know that they don't like him because he is about change. He's putting his money towards things that would cause change in this country, right? That are inclusive, that is, that supports black people, right? I didn't need to pull this up on Chat GPT. $220 million should have told all of us that. You should have backed up a little bit and be like, whoa, 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 whoa. Let me, $220? $220 million? That's a lot of money. Right? They say he's trying to break the economy because they know that y'all are not going to do the research and figure out, right? That they're talking about one incident in 92, 93, or whatever it is that has nothing to do with us, right? So if they can make him seem as though we should fear him, right, then we'll reject him, right? So just imagine rejecting somebody that may be sent here to help you. $220 million worth of help you. No. But you niggas wanna talk about some shit that ain't got nothing to do with you. You wanna be mad about some shit that ain't got nothing to do with you. Wanna have weird talking points that you can't explain. Instead, wanna make it seem as though I'm the problem and I'm not black enough, and that essentially I then got told that I have a bias for Jewish people because B. James decides he gonna go do some recon and go figure me out. Go get my tea. Go figure out what my ideology is and what I stand on. Not make his case for what he's been saying. I need to figure out what you out here talking about, because that's what it's about. I need to figure out who you are. Huh? Not keep it on point. Not be focused on what the conversation is. No. So he goes, oh man, he come back in the room one time and says, y'all in here still shucking and jiving? That's towards me. Because I've not defended George Soros, just tried to get some understanding. So that is just considered shucking and jiving, my niggas. And I'm more black than you ever could fucking be. You couldn't take my black card if you fucking tried. I promise you that. And if it means that I gotta talk like this and get all gutter and nasty and some shit that'll get to your level that you fucking understand, my nigga. What? I told you I'm not working on my language. I'm not trying to fix any of that. This is what it is. You don't get to insult me. And even if you said shucking and jiving, my nigga, that's an insult. I don't gotta return that with grace, femininity, or any of those weird ass shit that y'all be talking about on this app. No, I don't. Y'all then try to make comments about my looks. The female, what's her name, Munch, started talking about my looks, talk about my face looking like a whopper. Now, just to remind you, talk about me having bangs and all this other weird shit, just not to talk about the topics at hand. Y'all took it to places and then got mad and tried to tell me about how I'm handling how you're handling me. We don't like. I'll never sit back and re-examine my actions in that motherfucking type of way. I promise you, I'll never do it. You got what you deserve, Munch. You got what you deserve, hood talk. Yeah, straight like that. Straight like that. You got what you deserved. I'm trying to figure out what I'm trying to make sure I'm trying to lay it out, right? So, oh, Chat GPT. So I pulled up on Chat GPT so I can just go over with you guys so you can understand, and maybe this would simplify on why they hate George Soros and why you guys sound like fucking idiots hating him, right? One, you don't have anything to stand on outside of just picking up some shit from somewhere else, parroting some shit from somewhere else, right? Without understanding. You guys are the parrots. Nigga, I could never. I don't repeat shit I don't fully understand. I don't even participate in conversations on things, speaking to things that I've not researched, looked up, or it could, be able to defend with some type of source. So if I come from speaking from an opinion, I most definitely know I can go find the information. Yeah, most definitely. Yeah. That's how that works. That's most definitely how that works. So, this is where I left off at. I'm sorry. B. James comes back in after going, I guess, to look at all of my shit out there, like in terms of my work. Comes back and was like, yo, I should have looked at your bio. I see it now. You got a bias. I see it says here that you support Jewish people. I said, what? Because remember I told y'all at the beginning of this story time, I didn't know the man was Jewish. Didn't play a factor into my mind. Didn't know anything about him being Jewish. And it's really even more concerning, B. James, that you think biases work like that, right? When someone it says they support Jewish people, another ostracized, another community that has went through some of the things that we have went. I'm talking about their right to not be persecuted when I say I support Jewish people. Nothing to do with individually, right? Because we got to break it down for you. Nothing to do individually down to the person, right? Because what you would imply is that I would support a Jewish person, right or wrong, no matter what, because for the sake of saying I support Jewish people not being persecuted. I support Jewish people not being discriminated against. Same thing I support for my own people. Same thing I support for the LGBT community. Same thing I support for women. Same thing I support for any minority group in the world, right? Does that essentially mean that I have a bias across the board? Meaning that I can't speak on nothing objectively? Right? Now, these are the assumptions, and this is the level of conversation that we're having because you can't stay focused on what we're talking about because you can't stand on what we're talking about. Now, all of a sudden, the topic becomes me, right? And organic, I most definitely peeped you saying certain things. She hates men, or she know this, right? Stirring the pot on certain things, making it seem as though I can't be objective. And the problem is that you guys just don't know what you're talking about. That's everybody in that room that let that conversation. And if I'm the only one who stood on and still standing, you just didn't know. All right, y'all. So we're going to read some of this New York Times article, which was written by a black gentleman. Let me go here and see. Let me see. So it's written by Mr. Steve W. Herndon. This was posted July 13th, 2020. And so let's get into it because I really want you guys to get a full understanding of like what exactly he's been doing with the money, and just so that you can kind of understand like why I was so frustrated in this room. I do want to say I had to go back and record this part of the video because I wanted to do it much more clear. But one of the things since coming back and recording this is that of course I've been on Clubhouse and these people they don't talk direct, they don't address things, they do the trolling thing, a very childish behavior. But one of the things that you'll do that happens, right? And I hate when white people get involved in the dynamics of like when things are happening between black people, like when we're falling out or we're not getting along or we're going back and forth. I really, really, really would appreciate white people to mind their fucking business. And this is not to do with just mind your business. Like there's going to be things you don't understand, and I think sometimes even pro black or we hate white people, black people, all of a sudden they will run to white people for protection. They'll run to white people to try to get sympathy. They'll run to white people to try to validate their bullshit when they're being called out and they don't like how they're being called out, right? Then they'll appeal to you guys as for empathy and compassioning, right? I think one of the other things that I've been picking up in some of the rooms with some of the white people who I know black people are running to and having something to say about me in terms of like how this conversation or how this interaction worked. I think one person said something. Well, you certain time you can't expect people. You can't expect people. I think it was like you can't expect people to know some of this stuff. This is not stuff that regular people know, and I'm tired of that cop out, right? And being someone who's black and seeing somebody or you trying to give black people a cop out is saying is the layman people don't know this, right? We're talking about our government, right? And just so happened Ohio just recently just had a vote and people did not come out to vote, right? There's times like when I've done radio shows, I make sure that I'm consistent and I would talk about the questions that are on the ballots and stuff like that because people just don't know, right? So I'm not dumbing it down for mine, right? And I understand that there are some things in terms of the things that I do know in terms of my knowledge and the things that I research and take time to the layman things that people won't know. But when it comes to politics, when it comes to our government, things that are really affect us, I'm not dumbing it down on that. Just a point period to the blank when it comes to that. And I just, like I said, I just really would appreciate white people just to mind their damn business. Also, to maybe not articulating things in a way that people would understand. I don't understand what's confusing about just simply saying I have placed articles in the chat. If there's something that I cannot articulate to you guys in this hostile environment where multiple people are coming off the mic and I'm being attacked with frivolous just not important, just weirdo talking points, nothing to do with the conversation, then well, you can just read the articles and then come to a conclusion from that, right? If you feel like as if though someone is not explaining it to you, to your satisfaction, right? I think when you have people who just really want to just continue to blame other people for them not knowing, right? It's just draining and it's aggravating. I sit in a particular person's room on a clubhouse. I don't say his name because he's a public figure. He puts himself out there. I sit in this a particular doctor's room on Clubhouse, and his name is Doctor. Does his name really matter? No, but he does a room almost every day talking about the COVID vaccine and all the ignorance and with the conspiracy theories within the black community and people just not knowing, what the fuck they're talking about. And he's not gentle in terms of like saying, no, you're being a dumbass, right? Give me the source, give me the information. And people like his rooms. People don't try to well, people do try, but essentially people fuck with the rooms. People, because in Clubhouse, it's like a community. Like we all at this point are very familiar with each other. So if you're in his room, you like what you're hearing, right? And so that's why I call BS in terms of like people feeling fake offended by in terms of like my tone, in terms of like how I talk and all this other stuff or whatever. Again, the onus is always on you, right? When you don't understand something, the onus is to ask clarifying questions. I was not getting that. I was just getting straight up just ignorant. I was getting straight up just people wanting to hold on to their conspiracy theories, right? So, like I said, I think, do I think I can handle people differently? Them people? No, not in that environment, not how they were talking to me, right? Nobody starts off talking to someone a certain type of way. I mean, people do, but not in that setting. I know I don't, right? I most definitely do try to lead with disrespect. But like I said, the first thing I, encountered when I told the girl she was wrong about the mRNA, oh, you just wanna be disagreeable. You just want to be a contrarian. First thing came out of her mouth, right? Immediate attitude, right? Because y'all do that whole thing where you're talking about somebody you don't know in terms of me, and you're painting a narrative about me. So when I'm interacting with certain people, the energy's off, the interaction is off, right? Do you think I'm dumb and I don't pick up on these things? And immediately, once I know the interaction is off, that person's demeanor or how they're talking to me sounds like, okay, they got a hair across their ass, and I ain't put it there, right? I'm a human being, and I'm gonna respond, and I'm gonna stand up for myself. And at times, it's not gonna be sweet. Sometimes it's not gonna be cute. It's not. And I don't make no apologies for that, and I don't think anybody should when they feel like motherfuckers is fucking with them, right? Don't let a soul fuck with you. Straight from K Michelle. I shared a tweet this week where she said, "Don't let nobody fuck with you," and that's just where I'm at with it. Just don't let nobody fuck with you. And please don't let people fuck with you and tell you how you're supposed to respond, okay? That's manipulation. That's manipulation. I think, like I said, femininity has been weaponized for against women who do not, um, against women, to mind fuck them into thinking that there's a proper way to respond to disrespect, or there's a proper way to address how you are being treated. And sometimes there is, right? But outside of work, you know what I mean? And outside of church, you know what I mean? Life is life, and I don't think you're going to be 100% in your professionalism. And if you're not, please don't expect me to be. All right, so let's go ahead and read some of this article. It says George Soros Foundation pours 220 million into racial equity push. Mr. Soros's group will invest 150 million in grants for black-led racial justice groups, and another 70 million towards local grants for criminal justice reform and civic engagement opportunities. I mean, I'm gonna read all of this, but George Soros is the founder of the Open Society Foundation, the I can't. I don't know what it is with this for philanthropic group founded by the business magnate George Soros announced on Monday that it was investing 220 million in efforts to achieve racial equality in America, a huge financial undertaking that will support several black-led racial justice groups for years to come. The initiative, which comes amid national protests for racial equality and calls for police reform ignited by the killing of George Floyd in Minneapolis, will immediately reshape the landscape of black political and civil rights organizations, and signals the extent to which race and identity have become the explicit focal point of Americans' politics in recent years, with no signs of receding. Mr. Soros, who has at times faced smears and anti Semitism over his role as a liberal mega donor, is also positioning his foundation near the forefront of the protest movement. Of the 220 million, the foundation will invest 150 million in 5-year grants for selected groups, including progressive and emergent organizations like the Black Voters Matter Fund and Repairers of the Breach, a group founded by the Reverend Dr. William J. Barber II of the Poor People's Campaign. The money will also support more established black civil rights organizations like the Equal Justice Initiative, which was founded by the civil rights lawyer Brian Stevenson and depicted in the 2019 movie Just Mercy. The very most important, like not most important, one of the most important things to pay attention to is like where someone puts their money at, right? I think a lot of times when you have people who do not understand politics and don't understand like how they are getting screwed over, things just go over their head, right? They were so focused on Black Lives Matter and me having this weird bias that again, nothing. You would have to know me. I would have to have stated like I support Black Lives Matter. I've never done that. Like just literally. outside of I'm so consistent on it. Like I support the movement of what it's supposed to stand for. But what was incorporated and by Patrice Cullors and them, I did not support that. I could see that as being fraudulent as fuck. From the start, I didn't understand why other people were so naive. But even to the Black Lives Matter leader into my own state, and this is like when people make assumptions about people, they really just do look like an ass. To the leader who was in my own fucking state, I called her out for being fucking fraudulent. Okay, and she was one of the heads of Black Lives Matter in Massachusetts, right? So, like when I say that people just really just assume, and it's really disgusting because you're gonna look like an ass. I'm going to make you look stupid, right? At this point, at this point, I'm gonna make you look stupid, and that's just is what it is, B James. Just speak about what you know. But I want to go back to this part. We're talking about where he put his money, and people not understanding. A lot of what we see happening in politics in certain states, where you talk about like gerrymandering, where you talk about voter districts, and Republicans and conservatives doing weird stuff to draw maps in certain areas so that they benefit from the votes, right? Especially in South Carolina, we see that happening. We most definitely seen it happen in 2000. I'm sorry, for Barack Obama, his election, right? When he won, North Carolina went back and did some redistricting and some weird stuff with their maps, right? And so they got called out for that too, right? Who else? I think recently Alabama and some parts of Mississippi is being called out for their district, redistricting of maps and doing weird stuff. That way they can like kind of draw maps in a way that when it comes to the black votes, it won't be as impactful. If it was drew the way it's supposed to be, essentially is what that is, right? So please look into gerrymandering. But just to say that he put money behind Black Voters Matter Fund, that's extremely important, right? That speaks to voter disenfranchisement. That speaks to the the gerrymandering and all this other stuff, like trying to protect and make sure that groups who are looking into these things are funded, right? So I mean, that's just me guessing, but that's extremely important. There was no acknowledgement of anything that of this, right? They could have went and pulled this article up while I was in a room so they could see that, okay, it's just more than Black Lives Matter. That person who planted that seed about, crisis, instigators and shit like that, this would have most definitely countered that, right? This would have countered that. So you guys would have known that that was just some bullshit. And the other thing that I found interesting listening to people talk on the clubhouse this week was, when I am when I am when I am engaging with people on Clubhouse and we're having a back and forth, what ends up happening, like it happened in this room, is that when people think that they know your business and stuff like that, they think that this interaction, they try to blame it all on everything else except for one, their actions, two, what is being discussed, right? I told y'all everything underneath the sun kept coming up. They wanted to talk about my biases. They wanted to talk about my content that I made on YouTube and, what's my ideology. They wanted to talk about everything, not to talk about what they stand on, right? I know recently I've heard, oh, people, just, treat people like they're their ex-boyfriends or the men who disappointed them in life, right? So now if you pay attention to how the communities are built on Clubhouse, majority of them are built around men. Y'all already know that because that's just what ends up happening. Especially in the black community, right? We have houses, we have clubs, I'm sorry. We have houses ran by people who want to have conversations, and just because they are a man and they may be the wrong person who created the room and, created the title, they'll center themselves as an expert in whatever they're talking about, and they really don't know what the hell they're talking about, right? So with that being said, if I'm sitting in your room and you're centered and you're the one running your mouth the most, right? In the majority of the rooms, the men are centered, right? And you're running your mouth the most, and I am typing or I found something to be incorrect about what you're saying, I'm not quite sure what my personal life has to do with you being wrong, right? Did somebody in my life and I find this to be I find this to be so weird that people try to imply that, oh, you're personal. Like, it's like, so did my personal life make you wrong? Like, I'm just confused, right? Because if the fact is that you're still incorrect, I'm not quite sure why you think my personal life plays anything, plays a part in this, right? So as of to say what, like, you would be right if I didn't have personal things that are like, I just don't know what you're trying to apply, and that's the most craziest part, and that's the part that makes me, claim my new name, which is the sexy autistic nerd. Because yeah, I'm going to have tons of questions. I'm going to look a little off because from what I'm hearing from you guys, it's just really weird sometimes. It's really weird. All right. So it says here the Open Society Foundation will invest an additional 70 million in local grants supporting changes to policing and criminal justice. This money will also be used to pay for opportunities for civic engagement and to organize internships and political training for young people. And most definitely, they are going to most definitely need it going forward, because the understanding of like how this shit works and what's going on is really really off. And then what also came up, right? Because I most definitely pointed to this paragraph to them to let them know, hey, this is where he's put money at. Why do you have more questions for him and not more questions for the people who run these organizations, right? Why are you not looking into a Reverend Dr. William J. Barber II and finding out like what does the Poor People's Campaign looks like and what are those tangibles look like in communities, right? And how are people benefiting from all this money being donated to his campaign? B. James then informs me that, oh no, you just want to get on the black people. What? Is you crazy? I have sat on Clubhouse and watched her make so many rooms attacking Jewish people and finding a problem with them, and um, feeling as if though they're not our allies, and why should we care about issues and things that have to do with Jewish people and stuff like that. And it's hard for me to even like defend. It's hard for me to even like jump on that bandwagon of hate when there's pure examples of people donating money and seeing us and acknowledging the fact that there is a problem and wanting to help, right? Like we've seen that during the civil rights movement in terms of the partnership that we had with the Jewish people who came out and actually marched and participated, right? There are some white people who did die in Mississippi and Alabama in terms of trying to get people, registered to vote, right? And I don't know why we think we can move forward and think that we don't need any allyship. I'm never going to think that. I don't think that at all. I just don't. Our the democrat I'm sorry, the demographics in this country is so diverse. There's just no way that I think we can move forward without making sure that we have other groups of people that are also supporting what we're trying to stand for in terms of trying to change society for a better society for everybody, right? And when you're talking about making a change for everybody, it does have to be inclusive of other people and working with other people. If not, it looks like you're a hate group, right? And I think that goes over people's head right now. If with the Kanye and the Hebrew Israelites and all this other stuff, and us, and some of us having a real strong opinion about illegal immigration. Those individuals who have a strong opinion about Jewish people that are unfounded and just really just hate. Who exactly is we partner up with at this point? How are we going to get support if we are just really being close minded to everybody, right? So, like I said, that's not something that I'm interested in. But the fact of the matter is, when we talk about people like a Jay Morrison, or we talk about individuals like a Umar Johnson and countless other people who hustle within the black community and use a lot of our trauma and the things that we go through to kind of build themselves up, right? Jay Morrison literally used Tulsa, Oklahoma, right? Black Wall Street to build and steal millions and millions of dollars from the black community, right? And so when I'm asking you guys, why are you not interested in seeing what these black organizations, right? The community, right? See what they actually did with the money. You rather turn it into wanting to be a hateful group of ass people towards George Soros and Jewish people. And that's disturbing to me, right? But this is goes back to why I opened this the way I did in terms of saying white people mind your business, because I understand my community that I come from and the hatefulness sometimes that we display that is unfounded, right? A lot of times it's something that happens so often, even in terms of like how we interact with each other, right? I just don't like that person. And I know that's not that big of a deal, but it actually will lead to violence within my community. People being jealous for weird reasons. That person's prettier than them. There's a 15-year-old girl dead right now because there was another girl just jealous of her because she was just that girl. Popular, captain of the cheerleading squad. Didn't like her cockiness, didn't like anything about her. Another girl stabbed her to death because she was jealous of her. So I'm just telling you about what I know happens in my community, right? Let's not beat around the bush in terms of the killing of a gentleman by the name of Peanut that Young Thug is on trial for at this current time, right? In association with that killing, all out of jealousy. All out of jealousy. And there's just no way that you can look at it any different than that. I'll even go a step further and say that I think Tupac was killed out of jealousy also. Yeah, I do. And it's alleged that maybe Puff Daddy had something to do about it. And if you hear Tupac talk about how he got jumped by, and he believed that he believed that Diddy, had him jump in New York, right? Because that's where Diddy is from and all this other stuff. That's what his thoughts were allegedly, right? At the time when you're talking about Biggie and Pac was the more well named person. He was still more well respected. He was the bigger name. At the time when Young Thug was coming up, there was another artist that Peanut was was managing. He was the bigger artist at the time, but they didn't want to fuck with Birdman and Young Thug anymore. So what you do, you gotta move them out the way, right? So when I say if you're white and there's just things and elements that happen within this community that you just do not understand. And the best way I can give y'all an example of like maybe you'll understand it, right? Tanya Hardin and Nancy Kerrigan. That's the best way I can explain it. Just pure jealousy. Just pure jealousy. Okay? Don't let people fool you with thinking that they are, they don't like somebody because there's a deeper meaning. That person's just not a good person. All that other dumb shit. Because when you really look into those people who are saying those same things, they're not good people. They're not good people. The room that I was in on Clubhouse and the person who created that room, he didn't do nothing personal to me other than being sneaky and starting bullshit on his room, right? But what was clear to me was that it was mentioned while I was there that he be recording people and having recordings on people. This is the type of people we're talking about. White people mind your business. Sitting around recording people, right? That's sneaky ass behavior. Not on top of that, that same person, let me tell you about God. Whew. That same person room where I sat in, and he did that sneaky shit. Created that, let that environment manifest the way it did, right? He in jail right now, y'all. He in jail right now. This man has potentially fucked up his life behind Clubhouse. I'm not going to get too far into the story because, like I said, I didn't want this to be too long. But I am going to talk about this on my TikTok. But what I will say is that there was a young lady that he was dating or whatever, and allegedly, I guess she sent him some pictures. There was in total 3 pictures sent or something like that. One of the pictures she gave him permission to post, but she did say cover up her breast. Now I heard this directly from her No, I'm sorry. I seen the text message, and so that's how I know exactly what she said to him. Cover up my breast or something like that. But when it came to the other two pictures, he did not have permissions to post them, and he posted them in public Discord rooms, right, for people to see. He then, I guess, they fell out, and he wanted her to leave him alone. He then called her father and had a conversation with her father and telling him about her behavior. I think that's I don't think nobody has any rights to be calling anybody's mother like we're in like elementary school or high school with the behavior that I see on Clubhouse, right? The behavior is just disgusting all around with certain groups of people, right? So if you call mine, she will not be able to say nothing to me because again, I'm on here with y'all and know that some of y'all ain't shit, right? Nobody's doing nothing to y'all. Some of y'all just ain't shit and it just is what it is. But with that being said, he called her father and he sent her father these pictures. Do you know how embarrassing that is? Your dad gets these pictures from a man online, right? So long story short, she filed charges. She's in Texas and he's in New York. And he's in them people's one of our worst prisons I think I've heard about in the United States, which is Rikers. And he's in there right now. And they said from list I was in the room that she did, and she said he will be extradited to Texas for these charges. And that the detective that she spoke to, this is all alleged, right? And I'm not gonna say his name, because he's managed to fuck up his life enough, right, behind Clubhouse, right? But there's so many stories I can tell you guys of people who's fucked up their life behind Clubhouse, right? People have lost their jobs and all types of stuff, right? Because this shit is crazy. That people again will get so offended and get mad at you and will want to call your employer, and then call your husband's employer. That has happened also, right? So when I say white people mind your business, I truly, truly, truly mean it. Like with everything in my heart, that you will not be able to say nothing to me about mine. How about the ones who access a certain woman's health records on in real life and put her information out, right? These same group of people are all associated with each other on this app. So when you want to talk to me about how to talk to people and all this other stuff, if I'm mishandling, you know what I mean? I'm going to laugh at you and think that you're something like you just need to mind your business. That's it. Just mind your business. Um, so he may be extradited to Texas, and one of the things that she said that when she spoke to the detective was that the detective said that I guess they got a hold of his IP address and they were able to see his movements and see the things that he had been doing and downloading and all this other stuff. And it was really dark, and there's some other things that potentially could get him in trouble from what they seen, right? So take that and make out of it what you want. This is what she is saying, right? Now, just to remind you, this is one of the niggas that be sitting on Clubhouse acting like they got it all together. Money ain't a thing. They get into the money. Now, I'm no dummy. Nigga, you ain't got time to be getting to the money all the hours you spend on this app. There are some people who's, they work from home and, their money makes them money. So I get that, but you ain't that. Not with still being in Rikers Island since Saturday. And today is what, Wednesday? Or what's today? Thursday? Yep, today's Thursday. Not with you still being in Rikers Island since Saturday. No ma'am, no sir. You ain't got the money. And then they talking about your family and got money and all the other stuff. Y'all need to shut up on these apps. Y'all need to shut up and stop acting like you something that you're not. And it's really, really getting weird out here. So one more thing that I'm going to read, because like I said, that was extremely important. And I am going to look into, these poor people's campaign and see what they did with the money. But like I said, when I said that to B. James, he said, no, I don't knock nobody's hustle and da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Oh. But when it came to Black Lives Matter and the lesbian women, y'all got a problem with what they do with their money, right, little feather? But when I'm talking about let's question these individuals, I don't know if everybody, if all these these programs are ran by black men, but I see at least two of them are. We not gonna question that. But y'all got a problem with the lesbians, right? Because the lesbians, y'all say, are tearing down the black community. You know, feminists are tearing down the black community in the nuclear family, right? So their hustle bothers you, but if potentially, I don't know, I'm not trying to imply these men are hustling within these organizations that the money went to from George Soros, but if they are hustling, it's all good. Yeah, I am. It's all good. Leave that alone. He doing what he got to do. That's when all that shit start to be in play. White folks, mind your business. I promise you. Promise you. There's gonna be shit about this that you'll never understand. Mind your business. All right, so let's get to the fact that, like I said, what brought me, and I knew from seeing where he was putting his money, meaning he, George Soros, that I understood very early on in this conversation that these people did not know what they were talking about. I understood that they were being used, or they had picked up talking points that they do not have the understanding to support, right? In terms of we're having a conversation, they can't stand on it with anything legitimate, right? And so I literally just, pulled up Chat GPT. I wanted to hear exactly what is it that conservatives and Republicans have a problems with George Soros, and it was so freaking like everything I thought that I didn't. I mean, I didn't need this, but I just wanted to see it laid out. Uh, Bear with me while I pull this up. All right, here we go. So it says here, I just simply typed one sentence, and it was, why doesn't the right size conservatives don't like George Soros? And it says here, criticism of George Soros among conservatives is not universal, and opinions can vary widely. However, there are certain reasons why some conservatives might express negative views about him. Political donations. George Soros is known for donating substantial amounts of money to various liberal and progressive causes and candidates, right? Extremely important in terms of the room that I'm in. Y'all talking against somebody. Numbers say that majority of black Americans and black people in this country vote liberal and progressively, right? So, okay. That's why for me, the red flags was that this don't make sense. Y'all both, these two groups of people hate this man. Some conservatives may view this as an attempt to influence political outcomes in a way that aligns with his ideological beliefs. This can lead to concern about the influence of money in politics and the potential impact on conservative politics, right? This is something that both sides does, right? There's people on the Republican side that donate a heavy lot of money, and there's Democrats who are concerned about the influence that they have on policies and laws and stuff like that, and officials or So this is not something that both sides don't do, right? But just to understand, when it comes to George Soros, he's the person on the Democratic side, the Democrat side that donates to them, right? There's a reason why a lot of times when it comes to some of these celebrities and stuff like that you see, come out and say something, um, they usually are the ones also donating a lot of money. Some of these liberal and progressive organizations in Hollywood. And that's why you literally see Hollywood support the left a lot. They'll raise money for candidates and all of that stuff, right? So like I said, it happens on both sides, right? So that's not something that's not new, but I think that's the reason why I literally knew something was off. And it says Soros is the founder of the Open Society Foundation, which supports various social justice, human rights, and democratic initiatives. Some conservatives may disagree with the specific causes and initiatives funded by these foundations, viewing them as promoting policies that are at odds with conservative principles. Actually, so basically saying they want you to fear him, but they fear him because he puts money towards organizations that go against their ideology and with their interests, in terms of, like, a lot of times when we think of Republicans and conservatives, I'm sorry, we do think about white supremacy. We do think about all the racism and all the other stuff that they stand for and tend to support, right? And so if you are a conservative, you look at George Soros as somebody who wants to undo or wants to take power because it's all about power, right? And right now, whiteness equals power in this country. And if we empower our communities or minority communities, they're not going to be as much in power as impossible. So there's a lot of people who are fearful of that when you look at the numbers, the birth numbers, and looking who's coming into the country and all types of stuff. So they're most definitely trying to hold on to that. And so someone like George Soros kind of actually he actually scares them because he could actually be helping people, right? Currency speculation and economic view. Soros gained notoriety for his currency speculation activities in the past, particularly his involvement in the 1992 Black Wednesday incident in the United Kingdom. Some conservatives might view his financial activities as contributing to economic instability or manipulating markets for personal gain. Again, that may be true, but 92 was 21 years ago, and the UK ain't got nothing to do with us, right? And that's what I kept saying to you guys in terms of those three things they laid out for me. Two of them didn't even have anything to do with us, right? The Holocaust and whatever he lied about and with that. And not to say that it doesn't make him, his character look bad, but it's, again, for all of black people, and there to be a consensus on that stage that y'all had a problem with George Soros and he was this negative person. Your examples of why just does not make sense when he has $220 million that he's given to you, right? I mean, I just don't understand. He was not Hitler in the Holocaust. I mean, like, let's be, I'm not trying to be funny, but like what is it that you all are mad at right now? I'm still lost. Whew. Globalization and nationalism. Soros is a proponent of globalization and has expressed support for international cooperation and open borders. Some conservatives, particularly those who emphasizes national sovereignty and more restrictive immigration policies, may disagree with these views and see them as undermining their own political goals. I'm one of those black social conservatives that that has a problem with the open borders, most definitely. um Oh, yeah, I don't know if I told you guys that. Yeah, I most definitely consider myself to be a conservative, like a social conservative, but y'all gotta figure that out on your own. I'll tell you what I believe in. Y'all should, I mean, it should be, if I say I'm a social conservative, usually I'm just saying that I probably don't my views sometimes don't fall on the popular opinion within the black community, right? And it doesn't mean because there's times I'm extremely progressive on some things, right? You know what I can define it as? Y'all know how y'all know, like, I have a niece that's transgender, right? And I support LGBT community rights and all types of stuff and want them to have all their rights, marriage, all that other stuff. Anything that I have, I want them to have, right? Where my social conservatism comes in is when my video I did on drag, right? And my views on that, right? Or my conservative views around Janelle Monáe and Lizzo and their behavior, right? So when I say I'm socially conservative, I know I'm probably going against the more popular view of very loose and very, it's not that big a deal, people's asses are out or breasts is out, right? That's what I mean when I say I'm like socially conservative. I just know that majority of the time I'm much more conservative on my outlook on certain specific things, but not when it comes to people having the right for the autonomy of their body or have the right to choose who they want to get married and all that other stuff. It says media portrayals, negative portrayals of Soros in some conservative media outlets or by certain political figures can contribute to a perception that he is an influential and controversial figure, potentially leading to more widespread skepticism or criticism. It's important to note that opinions about George Soros among conservatives are not monolithic, and there are likely individuals within conservative circles who have nuanced or differing views about him. Additionally, public discourse and opinions can change over time, so the reasons for any given viewpoint may evolve as well. So yeah, I just really wanted to give you guys that like little, summary and bulletin points on the reasons why conservatives and Republicans have those issues with George Soros, just so that you guys can see what it is and you can see that most definitely it just counteracts or, everything that we stand for. Yeah, I just want us to be like better, right? Like I want us to get to the place where like we really try to understand what's going on in this country as it moves forward. Because if you don't, we get left behind, right? And that's the most important thing for me is that we as a people don't get left behind. As much as I may aggravate the fuck out of you, and that's fine. I promise you that's fine. But if I aggravate you to the point that you educate yourself more on specific topics and you get more knowledgeable, then I'm okay with that. Then I've done what I would. The assignment is complete. I've aggravated you to learn something. My God, my God. I'm okay with that. I promise you I'm okay with that. Be so fucking aggravated, you go research this motherfucking shit yourself. Be so aggravated with me. You learn about politics and history and all that. Fuck me, yo. Be so aggravated with me. I promise you. I'm okay with that. If you get so aggravated, make you open a book and research some or pull up some shit on the Google or Safari or wherever the fuck you use, and I'm the motivation, baby. You done made my day. Oh God, I've done did what you asked me to do. Oh yeah, I promise you, I'm happy. I promise you I'm happy. So get that aggravated with me. I promise you, I'll be fine. But I know that you done looked some shit up and I done woke some shit up. Yeah, that's the assignment. Waking some shit up. Mm-hmm. All right, y'all know how we do it here. We keep it bougie as F. We keep it posh as F. We keep it black as F. Right? And we keep being blessed as F, y'all. Kiss, 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 kiss. And don't you forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And we are out. Bye.